You're never the best version of yourself you want to be. Rather, you are the lowest version of yourself you're willing to accept. What will you accept in your life? How does that resonate with you?
It's 100% true. Everything is a standard. How your body looks is your standard. The person you date is your standard. The amount of money you make is your standard. So every decision you make every single day is a standard that you have set for yourself.
Hey guys, welcome to Millionaire Brand Creation. I'm your host, Michael Banovac, and I'm super excited to have my friend on, Hannah Hammond. Hannah, if you don't know, is quite an exceptional young entrepreneur. She's 28 years old, and more importantly, she graduated Summa Cum Laude from ASU. You probably know her from multiple businesses that she's a part of and helped found here in Arizona and beyond. Firm being one, commercial and residential real estate. She has a company called Cash, which is a hard money lending business, as well as a lot of other interesting ventures that I'm sure we'll touch upon. So welcome to the show, Hannah. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here and I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about your childhood and what got you that zest for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so my childhood was a tough environment. I didn't really have a father figure. I had two older brothers, much older than I was. And of course, they picked on me and all those things. And we definitely didn't have a lot of money. And I just had the entrepreneurial bug from a very early age. I remember as early as 6 years old. Some of you have known the story of the McFlurry Millionaire, where my dad wouldn't buy me a McFlurry. And I said if I was going to be rich to be able to buy myself McFlurries. So that's kind of where it all began. But, I would fill balloons with flour and create stress balls and try to sell them as just a little kid. And then I really loved horses, but I couldn't afford a horse. So I tried to learn to train horses so I could charge people to ride their horses instead of pay for them. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad at a pretty young age. And I decided that made a lot of sense to have assets and passive income and try to achieve financial freedom. And then I decided at that point I was going to get my real estate license as soon as I could, as soon as I turned 18.
So you got your license when you turned 18 too, as did I. How did it change your life when you first got your license? What were your first steps?
So it was the path of least resistance to just stay in Arizona, get a full ride scholarship because I didn't have a college fund and I didn't want to go into debt. So I just said, I'm going to stay in Arizona. I'm going to go to ASU. I got a full ride, got my real estate license right away. I knew the market here because I'm fourth generation native to Arizona. Did the crash course and I never intended to be a real estate agent. I was like, I don't know, had too much of an ego for that or something. And I just wanted to be an investor and I wanted the tools to invest. But I was waiting to start college and I really had nothing to do. And so an agent at the office I started at had an open house or a listing that he would allow me to hold an open house. And it was the middle of summer, which no one goes to open houses in 120 degrees. And I actually cried. It was a horrible experience. But the one person showed up when I was wrapping up and that was the neighbor. And he came in and he just wanted to check out the house. And then about a week later, he listed a $1.1 million commercial property with me. And that was my very first deal. It's now owned by Moon Valley Nursery. And
Very
so I
cool.
learned the whole, that's how I got into commercial real estate right out the gates and learned about zonings and, different uses you could do with different zoning codes and really what NOI was and cap rate and how to force appreciation into commercial properties. I learned about 1031 exchanges because he did an exchange into a mansion up in North Scottsdale. So then I learned the Airbnb market and the luxury side. So it was a very, very good entrance into real estate at 18 years old.
What did you do with your first big paycheck? Because based on previous conversations, you and I kind of lived like cockroaches for 10 years, stashing cash and investing money until we wanted to live large and we felt comfortable doing that. Explain that and the moves and steps that you took.
So I got my first check. It was $36,000 was the commission. And then this is when I started to learn about taxes. So the brokerage took 36% of my 36,000.
Wow.
And then I took that money. I didn't even know what taxes were at this time. So I took that money, I opened up a stock account, I put some money in stocks, and then I put the rest into my first condo because I needed a place to live at that point. So I bought a condo for $76,900. I put 20% down. I put some money into renovating it and I moved into it, furnished it, moved into it, bought all my furniture on online, Craigslist. I did it as cheap as I could. And then that was all the money. And then I put some into savings to pay for living expenses and things like that. I actually had a little stipend from my scholarship to help me pay for food. So that took care of my food. And I pretty much ate popcorn for 3 years straight. Whatever, that's a whole different story. And then the next property I quickly sold after was the same. It was $1 million. So almost the same amount of money. That wasn't enough. I wanted to buy, like my first place I bought was a 1 bedroom. So the second place I wanted to be bigger. I was like at least a 2 bedroom. And then the third place, at least a 3 bedroom, just worked my way up. So I did a couple more sales and then I bought a 2 bedroom and I did a furnished rental on that 1 bedroom that I had purchased.
Very smart.
I actually still own it. I still own it. It's worth about 240,000. Yeah. And my mortgage is $380 and it rents for 2,000 a month.
Yeah, it's interesting being in real estate. There's just so many people that don't understand how buying and converting earned income into passive reoccurring income is so important. Can you touch upon that and the moves that you made for the last 5 or 6 years that helped you gain reoccurring revenue in your life?
Yeah. So my mentality was, if my passive income doesn't pay for it, then I don't buy it. Because
Interesting.
yeah, so that's why I live so cheap, because it takes a long time to build a sufficient amount of passive income.
Right.
So I was becoming equity rich, cash poor. And so my whole motive in life was build the passive income, build the passive income, build the passive income. And fortunately, being young is a huge advantage in real estate, because real estate's a time game. Like if you have time, the dollar will continue to go down, the real estate will continue to go up, the debt will go down. I spent no money on myself. I bought myself nothing. I lived as poor as I possibly could live. And I invested every single dollar until I built up enough passive income to hit $100,000, which was my like freedom number at the time. Even now I could live off of 100,000. I mean, not with a G-Wagon and a horse and all the things I have now, but if I had to, I could live off of my passive income. That was my goal. So once I had $100,000 of passive income, that's when I started to be like, okay, I'll stop eating ramen. I'll eat like chicken and rice, and
Right.
because my
You
passive
stepped
income.
up.
Right.
It's the delayed gratification. It's such an important game and it's hard. You had to give advice to young agents or agents looking to reset their lives and their careers. What are some of the steps that you would recommend that they take with this type of environment? High 10-year treasury, our 30-year fixed rates are extremely high. Real estate's a little soft right now, but that will change with, lower interest rates coming soon, hopefully. What would you recommend that they do in this type of environment and market?
Focus on the network and take the slower times to really strategize your pipeline and build and work on the relationships. That's what it comes down to. And so I've taken a step back, even been like, okay, where's my goals? Where do I want to go? What do I want my business to look like? What do I want my average deal dollar amount to look like? How many deals do I want to do a year? All kind of reverse engineering from how much money I want to make, and putting myself in the environments to build those kinds of relationships with those kinds of people. When those people are ready to buy or sell or invest or whatever, you're front of mind and you have such a deep relationship with them, they're going to use you. And so sometimes it's really nice to have, it's actually better for your business to be able to quiet down from just the task list every day and really focus on the strategy for growing and to really season those relationships that you have in your life. Because when you're just in the weeds and you're busy, you don't have time to go to lunch or go to happy hour or go talk to all the people that are really going to make a difference in your business and in your life.
How important is personal branding, wardrobe, interpersonal skills, meeting people, and branding yourself a certain way to meet a certain echelon of friend, client, and relationship base?
So for me, there's a quote, I don't know if it's probably someone else made it up, but I always say it. If you walk in like you own the place, everyone will think you own the place. So it's the way you carry yourself. It's the way you speak. It's the way you see yourself. I think yesterday I told you, I was like, I'm going to be a billionaire. Like I'm far, like, right. Someone probably wouldn't say that until they're worth like 500 million, maybe at least. I'm way far that, but that's just the way I think and carry myself. So I know if I go in a room full of billionaires, I'm already identifying with them. And so I'm not intimidated by that. So if you see yourself, if people ask me this, like, how do you get into bigger networks when you have no track record of belonging in that group? I'm like, well, you belonging in the group is your mind and you believing that you belong in the group. And just because they've accomplished more doesn't mean that you're below them or that you're not one of them. And I think it's just a really big shift in your thought process. And it's really helped me. I mean, I was 14 years old interviewing the parents of the high schoolers who were getting high. And I was playing chess with the dad, asking him how he built his health insurance company that was national, So I just identified with that group and I hung out with the parents and tried to just learn as much as I possibly could and never had imposter syndrome.
Yeah, even when you have success, it's interesting. I was on a couple different speaking panels and I kept hearing this reoccurring theme, which I didn't like, which was fake it till you make it. My
Mhm.
mentality has always been learn it until you earn it. Because when you actually get close to something, it becomes real, right? You stay in these environments, you learn about the things that fascinate you, whether it's real estate or a relationship development or watches or cars or travel or interior design, whatever it is. The closer you get to it and the more you make yourself aware of it, and the more it really manifests in your life. Can you touch upon that and how?
Everything, if I aligned myself and manifested me becoming a millionaire, that was my goal. I remember my brother, I was really young, and my brother was like, you'll never amount to anything. The poor get poorer, the rich get richer, you're
Right.
nothing. And I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And that was my goal. And I was so focused on that. And so I had a millionaire mindset from a young child, and I was not going to let anything stop me. And guess what? I became a millionaire, and that was 5 years above my goal. So in order to go and level up to the next step, you have to think 10x. You have to think bigger, right? Because if you want to be a billionaire, you can't do what a millionaire does, because
Right.
it's a whole different strategy, and you have to manifest it. And that's why I say it. That's why I believe it. That's why
Mhm.
I feel it. And sure, I mean, the odds of me becoming a billionaire is probably very, very slim. And it's not about the money, it's about the mindset, and it's about the strategy and the determination and thinking in a whole different conceptual idealization of what I need to do to get there. Because how I'm running my $1 million a year companies or whatever is very, very different. If I keep running them that way and just sell a little bit more, hire another staff, do a little bit more advertising, I'm not going to get to the new stratosphere that I want to get to. So you just have to think, like, that's been the biggest thing for me, is shifting my thought process and then buying back my time.
So you're a young girl, 28 years old. Obviously, you're attractive and you put a lot of, I would assume, attention into your physical appearance, which is great. How has that detracted or added to your ability to create opportunities in your life?
Yeah, it's interesting because some people tell me that me looking this way is my like best asset in business and real estate. And then other people are like, oh, that's your biggest curse in this business.
Mm,
So it can go both ways. And I think everybody's greatest attributes can also be their greatest curse, but it doesn't
yes.
inhibit you one way or another. So there's clients, wives don't like to work with me ever. So
Right.
I know that if I walk into a situation with a husband and wife that are, not older where they see me as their granddaughter, I'm not going to get that client. And so I'm not going
Right.
to go for those clients. But in commercial real estate, my client is usually an older male who they don't have kids. They're either divorced or they have their wife that's not involved in the business or whatever. And those are generally easier clients to work with. However, it can also be a curse because a lot of them won't take me seriously. They're like, oh, you're a young
Mm,
bimbo that probably has a trust fund and daddy's money and this and
right.
that. And then they don't work with me. So that's okay. I don't need every client. It's an abundance mentality. There's enough business out there to go around. I just need the clients that like me, trust me, and want to work with me. And those clients are going to be perfect for me. And those are going to be the ones that I enjoy working with. So the other ones, they're just not my client. And that's totally fine.
That's interesting. So when you look back at your life, 28 years, you haven't been on this planet very long, a little bit shorter than me. What is your biggest fear? And what have you learned about understanding your biggest fear and moving past it and becoming a better version of yourself because of it?
My biggest fear is failure. And I know that's super
Yeah,
cliche
me
and
too.
super common, but it's true. I always think of like, what if Macy, one of my best friends and I were talking about this. If I was raised in an environment with a lot of money, how would I be different? Would I have taken bigger risks? Would I be way further in my business? Or would I be more entitled and lazy and not doing those things? But because I don't have a plan I mean, I'm sure I could crash on, my mom's couch or something, but for the most part, there is no plan B. Like if I lost it all, it would be too bad, so sad. Good luck, And
Right.
so I definitely have taken much more calculated risks in business. And like in my lending company, I'll basically have a 50% loan to value position, which is not competitive in the marketplace.
No.
But I want to make yeah, I want to make sure that there's no way, even if bottom falls out, everything goes 50% down, because it's happened before,
Yeah.
that I still am not going to lose. And so you really, like, from when I've met very, very successful people in the hundreds of millions or even billionaire level, they take much bigger risks. Like they put a
Yes.
lot on the line. And that's the big thing I've noticed. And that's something that has held back my growth because I take very calculated risks. Now, the nice thing about that is I sleep very well at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that there's something to be said for that because I'm a highly anxious person. And it's something I'm working through. It's my, it's my biggest personal development piece is managing the anxiety and not being afraid of failure. And so my coach actually told me most of us conceptualize outcomes that are far worse than they actually are or ever could be. And so he told me, just ask, what's the worst that can happen? Like actually think through this before making a decision. Absolutely worst that could happen. Okay, if that happens, what would you do? How would you recuperate from that? How would it impact your life? And usually it's not as bad as your anxiety is telling you it is. It's like, okay, well, I could live off my passive income and get rid of the G-Wagon, like
That's not
it's
happening.
right. It's
I'm
not
not getting
going
the rid of the
to,
Ferrari either.
but I'm not going to be on the streets,
No.
no matter what, I'm not going to be on the streets. And the skills that I have can't be taken away from me.
Right.
The fortune can be taken away from me, but the skills can't. And I know I'm a good salesperson. I know I'm a good entrepreneur. I know I those things, even if I started from zero, it's like Grant Cardone's Undercover Millionaire, right?
Yep.
Here's $100, go become a millionaire with it or whatever. And I think that concept is so true. When I unravel that, a lot of it's probably ego, right? We don't want to lose. Entrepreneurs have egos and they want to be successful and they want to be the best. And it would suck to face the world and be like, wow, I just royally messed up and I lost everything. And I lost your money and I lost their money and I lost my money. And the exhaustion of even thinking about restarting and rebuilding is enough to has been enough to hold me back from taking on bigger risks.
Yeah, it's funny you say that actually, because I suffer from anxiety myself, and I'm definitely a calculated risk type person. I think that's what's held me back from getting married up to this point. But secondly, it's also, yeah, I think we're in the same boat in that respect. I'm like, shit, I don't want to lose 2/3. 1/3 or half goes to the ex, and then the other goes to the lawyers. I don't need to deal with that. You just learn from that and you think that doesn't really make sense logically, but you're right about taking calculated risk and going big, but you have to go big with an edge. You have to go big with, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Where are we going to end up? And that is actually the biggest difficulty of taking on other people's money. When you have debt, basically, that's personally guaranteed, that's a whole different game, especially when you go to people you love, people you care about, and take their money as opposed to just an institution or a bank. If it's a bank, give me all the money that you can. If it's a person that I love and I care about, I'm very, very careful before taking their money. How do you feel about that?
I'm exactly the same. I am more fearful. My personal development and struggles throughout my life has been my approval being completely based off of how other people think of me. And so that's where I found my self-worth, because I didn't have any self-worth of myself. I didn't love myself and I hated how I looked. I hated how I sounded. I hated everything about me. And so my only approval was the attention of other people and the acceptance and love that I was just seeking so bad that I didn't feel like I had. So my biggest fear is letting people down. And still to this day, and it's something that's helped me get to where I'm at, because I'm so good at what I do. I don't half-ass anything, because I want you to be as happier with me in the business transaction I did and the guidance I gave you in the relationship we had, or than anybody else that you've ever experienced. With that, it's great. And people are like, you're amazing and you do amazing work and you outshine everybody and how much you care. But with that, I care so much. I'm terrified. I'm crippled. I have been in the past. I'm now starting a fund, and that's changing because I work so hard on this, but I have been crippled by the idea of letting other people down and losing something of theirs that I might not necessarily be able to pay back.
I actually did a post recently on, I think it was Facebook, that I read from another friend of mine that had a great point. He says the biggest risk that most people take in their lives is not taking a risk at all. When you look at mediocrity in life, right, the biggest people that have made a difference have taken a risk. And you have to take a calculated risk in order to achieve any of the things that we've achieved in our lives at a young age. There is a risk involved and you could lose it all. But what's the alternative? Playing it safe and getting nothing, living a mediocre life, attracting a mediocre partner, going on mediocre trips. I would rather die than have that as my fate. I don't know how you feel about that, but it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying, when I was a kid, my first essay I ever wrote was 11 pages and it was called The Mediocrity of the American Dream. And my teacher was like, are you all right?
Yeah. Well, they don't know, right? Those that don't do teach. I mean, it's that construct. They've never been around the world and seen what we've seen. And in Wall Street, they actually call it the brain and the knife and fork crowd. Are you familiar with this concept? So in Wall Street, you have the analysts, which are the smart young Ivy League people doing all the behind the scenes work. And then you have the knife and butter crowd, which I would construct you and I as those that dress up, those that know how to wine and dine, those that know how to interact with people, those with vivacious, fun personalities that want to get deals done. It's almost the deal makers, the ones that like talking to people and making authentic connections and relationships. But then in the back, you need the people running the numbers and doing the spreadsheets and doing all that stuff too. But the
Right.
irony of the whole situation is the hardest thing is to learn those soft skills because it's in what you don't see that matters the most, right? We call this layers of legitimacy. So when I teach this in relationship development, it's the smallest details that actually have the biggest impact. The quality of the suit you're wearing, your dress, your watch, where you travel, what hotels you stay at, where you went to school, right? What friends do you have? Where do you go? What are your leisurely activities? All these weird things come into conversation, and subconsciously, we're constantly judging each other on that every millisecond. Can you touch upon that in your life?
I think it's extremely important how you dress, how you look, how you take care of yourself. I have something that I say only take advice from someone you trade places with.
Yes.
Everybody has advice to give. Everybody you ever talk to, if you say anything, they have an input on it, right? And so it's like this information overload. And especially when you're hearing it from your family or your friends or anything, it's how do I decipher what's good information and good advice versus what's bad advice? And that's how I think about it. It's like, would I trade places with this person in the area that they're giving me advice? Right. So if someone that's very overweight is telling me what I need to do on my diet, they are not successful in that area. So I'm not going to take the advice from them in that area. Now, if they're very successful in business and they're, where I want to be, then I'll take advice from them in that area. And that's helped me a lot. But for me, like people are like, oh, you're just so beautiful. Like I was an ugly duckling. That's why I try so hard to seriously, like
you got the veneers, the hair, the
right.
the
And then you have
workout,
to
spray
like, oh,
tans.
you're just a fake bimbo. I'm like, that's fine. You could judge me however you want, but this is what makes me feel good and confident.
Yes.
And feeling confident is so important because you're never going to close a sale if you are insecure, you're worried about how you look, you think you're ugly, you don't love yourself, like people feel that immediately. They could hear that on the phone. And I was that person. And I knew I was never going to grow until like being on camera. I was terrified of being on camera.
Yep.
I was absolutely terrified of my entire life. My brothers used to grab my fat and say, flip a cow when I was a kid. And so it was, and then they would like show me pictures and make fun of me. And it was terrible. So I had such a big fear of that. And I literally changed everything. I'm like, I was born brunette. I'm going to be blonde for the rest of my life. Anything that I aligned with my childhood, I just wanted the opposite. Like, I didn't have a lot of money. I'm going to have all the money I could possibly have. I didn't have a lot of friends or good relationships. I'm going to have the best relationships I could possibly imagine. I didn't get to travel. I'm going to travel the whole world and see every country. Yeah. So that was just what I wanted. And I started to align myself with that, but I wasn't just born looking good. And some people think I look terrible because it's not, not 100% natural. Like everybody has their own style and that's totally fine. None of it's right or wrong, but it's what makes you feel confident in your own skin, because that's what's going to get you happiness
and your results. Success. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. As a man, it's the same thing. We're in the gym, we're doing spray tans, we dress a certain way, we wear certain things to initiate and get the responses that we're looking for. So it's no different than as a woman. I 100% agree with you there. Who is your biggest mentor or someone that impacted your life the most, and what did they teach you?
I would say my family.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm very grateful. A lot of people complain and they like to play the victim in life, and I'm very, very grateful for everything bad, everything good, everything challenging that happened in my life. And I think I'm grateful that I wasn't born into having it all and being exposed to it all. Like I love the challenge and the journey and the growth and development, because maybe we say self-made, but it's not self-made. Nothing's self-made, right?
No, it's not.
Everything is a collective effort and learning that continues to grow and develop. Like I couldn't have learned anything if I didn't have books. Books were my biggest mentor of teaching me knowledge on business and things like that. and still are. I read multiple books a week, and I always will till the day I die. But I never paid a coach ever. And because I had internet at school, and that was my coaching for the most part in books. But eventually at 25, I hired a coach through a referral of another very successful friend of mine. He was a business coach, but it's funny. I was like 3 weeks in. I was like, you haven't even talked about business one time. I thought you were a business coach. She's like, well, yeah, because it's comes from within. You can't get your business right until you're right, and you're not right. And so the business doesn't matter. We need to work on you, and not just looking outward for filling the void that you have within yourself, or the one I had within myself. And that changed so many things in my life. I let go of almost everything I was doing, and shifted and did, check-ins with myself all day long with alarms, like, how do I feel right now? Because I was just being run by my inner voice. And I wasn't even present in my life. I was just in my head doing what I was doing, balling up of anxiety all the time, just had no idea of what decisions I was even making and why. And so that was what really taught me self-awareness, and being aware of the voice inside your head, and acknowledging it and observing it, but not identifying with it. And it's a game changer.
Yeah, that's a good one. So other than Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lecter's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what other book or two books would you recommend to the audience? And also, what quote changed the trajectory of your life?
Oh, okay. So books, I've recently read them, so that's why they're in front of mine. But 10X versus 2X and Buy Back Your Time. And those were really, really good, because so many things. 10X versus 2X, I kind of touched on earlier, like to think 10X. If I said, how are you going to 10X your business in the next 2 months? Well, it's going to be very different than what you're doing now. Right. So that's one. And then Buy Back Your Time is what's the most money you've made per hour? And what are the things on your to-do list that can be hired for less than that?
Interesting.
Probably a lot.
That is interesting. Yeah, majority probably.
Yeah. And so there's 3 trades. One is you trade time for money. Then you trade money for time. That's Buy Back Your Time. And then you trade money for more money. And that's how you build an empire, is trading money for more money. But you have to go through all 3 to get there. You have to start with trading time for money, and then you have to go to trading money for time. So those are the books aspects. And then The Power of Now on the personal side. And I'm reading The Surrender Experiment right now, which a lot of people have said it's amazing. I just started it. And then the quote that resonates with me the most is, I don't know the whole thing by heart, but it's Steve Jobs. Here's to the rebels, the misfits, the crazy ones, the round pegs and the square holes. And then it ends with, the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. That has always been, since I heard it, I just would repeat it to myself. And it's true. Like, I would tell people the biggest insult you could possibly tell me is that I'm just like everybody else.
Wow. Yeah, the worst thing you could call me is a commoner. It's just like, you're like everyone else. You're just vanilla. It's like, no, bullshit. That's not happening. No way. Yeah, it is funny you say that. So if you had to summarize kind of a takeaway of what we learned today and what you've exposed about your life, what would it be, and what's the big summary and takeaway?
That you're never going to get out of the pain that you're in until you fix yourself inside and look inward. Stop trying to fill that void with other things, whether it be business, which it was for me, or money, or sex, or drugs, or whatever. Really figure out, take the time to look inward into the world of spirituality and health, fitness, wellness. There's mentors and coaches out there for that. And once you're able to conquer yourself and love who you are, and actually know who you are, and observe your thoughts, then the business is a game changer, and your business will be able to grow, and you will actually enjoy it and be in the zone while you do it.
Wow. Yeah, I agree. The last quote of my book actually on relationships was, you're never the best version of yourself you want to be. Rather, you are the lowest version of yourself you're willing to accept. What will you accept in your life? How does that resonate with you?
It's 100% true. Everything is a standard. So how your body looks is your standard. The person you date is your standard. The amount of money you make is your standard. So every decision you make every single day is a standard that you have set for yourself subconsciously. You probably don't know it. Like, oh, my standard is, like, for me, I need to raise my standards on the relationship side. And I'm aware of that, So anyway, but it's your standard. And so I work out every single day. I was not a skinny kid. I was raised very unhealthy. I wasn't taught nutrition and any of that stuff. So it's an ongoing battle for me still to eat healthy, to make good decisions, to work out every day, to try to stay lean and fit and healthy so I could be the most productive and happy in my day-to-day life. That doesn't just come easy, but that's my standard. Like I refuse to let myself go because it's my standard. Right. And same in business. Like
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way.
yeah, I love it. And so I think it's just that is really take a step back and evaluate what are my standards in my life. And if I wasn't me and I saw someone with those standards, what would I think of that person? And that can help you really identify where do I need to make some tweaks and raise my standards and put the actions in place every single day to get there because it doesn't happen overnight. It's the habits that you do every day.
That's so true. So where can they follow you? Where can they get to know you? What can the audience do for you?
Thank you. Yeah. So mostly is my Instagram at Hannah B. Hammond. And through that, you'll see my business pages. And that's where I'm most active is on Instagram. As far as what they could do for me, I mean, I have a real estate brokerage. So we hire agents both for commercial and residential in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're about statewide. Actually, it's called The Firm. And then I have a hard money lending company called Cashed. And we do private money lending mostly on single family fix and flips, but we also do transactional funding, short-term funding, like less than 6 months. And we're in multiple states with that as well.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for taking the time. And I can't wait to get to know you better and to share your story with more people. It resonates with me, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with the audience as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been great. And you're amazing. So I look forward to getting to know you more as well.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day. Take care.
Take care.